My parents sat me down in the formal dining room. You know, the one we only ever used for Christmas and huge announcements. With tears in their eyes, the kind that are more for show than any real sadness, they explained why my sister deserved the company I had spent the last 10 years of my life building from the ground up. They said it needed new vision, and that she was the future. They were expecting me to fight, to scream, maybe even break down and beg. They wanted a scene. Instead, I smiled. I tilted my head, gave them a look like I was actually considering it, and told them I understood. I'd be a team player. And in that moment, seeing the relief wash over their faces, I knew I wasn't just going to leave. I was going to take the soul of the company with me, leaving them with a brand name and 4 empty walls. It all started a decade ago. I was 23, holding a degree that felt more useless by the day, a laptop that ran on hopes and prayers, and an idea that just wouldn't let me go. The idea wasn't sexy. We weren't creating the next big social media app or some world-changing AI. We were building a logistics and supply chain firm that was brutally efficient and obsessed with customer service. In a world of automated menus and 2-week response times, we were going to be the ones who actually picked up the phone. My parents offered a small loan to get started. It seemed generous at the time, but it came with unspoken strings I was way too naive to see. They called it seed money for the family business, which really should have been a giant red flag. But I was grateful. I took the money and poured every last ounce of my being into that company. The first 2 years are a blur of instant noodles, sleeping on a couch in our tiny rented office, and the constant, gut-wrenching fear of failure. I wasn't just the founder. I was the head of sales, the entire IT department, the janitor, and the only customer service rep. I remember celebrating our first big contract by treating myself to a pizza I could finally afford, eating it alone at my desk at 2 a.m. while fixing a server crash for a client on the other side of the world. I missed birthdays, holidays, weddings, you name it. I let friendships and relationships die on the vine, always telling myself it was for the greater good, for the future I was building. My mantra was simple. Do the hard work now, so life can be easier later. My family seemed proud, at least from a distance. They loved telling their friends at the country club that their son was a self-made entrepreneur. They loved the status my success gave them, but they never got the cost. They never saw the 18-hour days, the panic attacks over payroll, or just how lonely the grind was. They only saw the shiny finished product, a respectable growing company making a name for itself. By year 5, we were profitable. By year 7, we were a leader in our corner of the industry. We had a beautiful office downtown, a team of 50 amazing employees, and a list of loyal clients who trusted us completely. They trusted me because when a shipment got stuck in customs at 3 a.m. on a Sunday, it was my number they called. It was my voice on the line telling them it was handled. I had built the company's reputation on my own back. It wasn't just a business. It was a decade of my life, a decade of lost sleep and hard work. I thought my family saw that. I thought they respected it. I couldn't have been more wrong. My sister, Sarah, is 5 years younger than me. She's charming, she's smart, and she's always been able to make things look easy. While I was grinding it out, she was sailing through a top-tier business school, getting an MBA that my company's profits were helping to pay for. After she graduated, brimming with theories and confidence, my parents called another family meeting. It was time, they said, for Sarah to join the family business. It was only right. I agreed. I mean, on paper, she was a perfect fit. She had the formal education I didn't, the polish I'd never had time to get. I gave her a senior management job, a corner office, and told her to help us scale. I wanted her to succeed. I really believed that together, we could take things to a whole new level. And for the first year, it actually seemed to be working. Sarah was amazing in presentations, She could charm investors and make a PowerPoint deck about logistics look like a Silicon Valley moonshot. The team liked her. She was a breath of fresh air. But then, little things started to change. It started with pilot programs she'd launch without talking to me. Then came temporary changes to how we communicated that somehow always ended up routing things through her instead of me. I started hearing about major decisions in passing, decisions that I, as the CEO, should have made. She was a master at creating a consensus in rooms I wasn't in. She'd take my best people out for lunch and come back with a unified front on some new strategy. When I tried to push back, to reassert my authority, I'd get hit with carefully phrased accusations. I was stifling innovation. I was a micromanager. Then my parents would call in the evenings, gently scolding me. "Give her some room to grow, son. She has an MBA, you know. She knows the theory." They gaslit me so hard I started to believe them. I told myself it was just a founder learning to delegate. But it wasn't delegation. It was a slow-motion coup. The breaking point was that dinner, the one where they handed my life's work to her. They presented it as a logical next step, not a betrayal. "Sarah has the vision to take us national," my father said, his voice dripping with pride. "And you," my mother added, patting my hand. "You've done a wonderful job with the foundation. Now it's time to let the real architect design the skyscraper." They wanted me to step down as CEO and take some made-up title, founder and head of operations. I'd still have a job. They promised, but Sarah would be in charge. I looked at my sister. She didn't look triumphant or guilty. She just looked entitled, like this was always how it was going to go. She couldn't even meet my eyes. That's when I asked, "Is this a conversation or a decision?" My father's reply was instant. "A decision." I just nodded, picked up my steak knife, and calmly cut a piece of my fillet. As I chewed, a decade of pure exhaustion was replaced by a cold, diamond-hard clarity. If they wanted the company, fine. They could have it. But they'd be getting exactly what they paid for. A ghost of a business. They wanted the title and the office. I would keep everything that actually made it work. People think revenge is a hot, fiery, passionate thing. Mine was a cold, meticulous spreadsheet. For the next 3 months, I became the perfect employee. I was cooperative, helpful, and publicly cheered on Sarah's new leadership. I went to every meeting, smiled at all the right times, and offered my institutional knowledge whenever she asked. On the outside, I was the loyal son, the supportive brother. But every night after work, my real job began. My whole plan was based on one simple truth. A company isn't its brand or its money. Those are just props. A real company is a network of relationships, knowledge, and contracts. I spent a week mapping this network into 3 columns: assets, dependencies, and leverage. The assets weren't the cash in the bank. They were our top 5 clients, the ones who made up nearly 60% of our profit. These were clients I had personally landed and managed for years. Our relationship wasn't B2B. It was John to Steve. The dependencies were the people who held it all together. It wasn't the whole 50-person team. It was 2 specific senior engineers who had built our logistics software from scratch and were the only ones who knew its code. It was our lead project manager, Maria, a woman who could remember every detail of every contract. And it was our key shipping partner in Asia, a relationship I'd spent 5 years building that gave us rates and priority no one else could get. Leverage was my secret weapon. These were things I'd built into the company structure years ago, just as good business practice. I spent a week with my own lawyer, going over everything. The office lease? I had personally guaranteed it, with a clause that let us break it if I was no longer in an executive role. That sweet deal with the Asian shipper? It was contingent on me, the founder, being the executive sponsor and our biggest client. The one worth a full 20% of our revenue? Their contract had a key man clause. They could terminate without penalty if there was a major leadership change without my sign-off. These weren't traps. They were shields, and I was about to use them as swords. While I played the good soldier during the day, I was building a new world at night. I quietly registered a new company, funded by my personal savings. I hired a lawyer, drew up employment contracts, and prepared new client agreements. I wasn't poaching anyone yet. I was just building the ark before the flood. Then I started having lunches. Quiet, off-the-record chats. I met with Maria, my star PM. I didn't offer her a job. I just listened to her frustrations with the new direction. Only then did I say, what if there was a place that valued your expertise, where you could help build something and own a piece of it? I did the same with the 2 engineers. I didn't offer them more money. I offered them ownership. I offered them a return to a culture where they could actually get work done. With my key clients, I was even more careful. I'd take them to dinner and say, I'm a little concerned about the new direction. How are these changes affecting you? I let them tell me their fears. I let them be the ones to say, frankly, John, our loyalty is to you. I'd just nod and say, I appreciate that. Let me think about how we can make sure your service isn't disrupted. Meanwhile, I gave Sarah all the rope she needed to hang herself. She was pivoting to a bold new enterprise strategy. It looked great on a slide deck, but it was a strategy that burned through cash and depended entirely on the stable income from our existing clients, the very clients she was ignoring. As she presented her grand vision to my parents, who were looking on with total adoration, I just smiled and updated my timeline. Her ambition was speeding everything up. The final straw came on a Tuesday. Maria messaged me. For your information, Sarah just scheduled a confidential board meeting for next Monday. Agenda: organizational restructuring. They're voting you out. They weren't even going to keep me in my fake role. They were going to fire me. I looked at the message, and I didn't feel angry. I just felt ready. She had just set the final date. That night, I didn't sleep. I finalized everything. The next morning, at 8 a.m., I gathered Maria and the 2 engineers. I'm resigning today, I told them. They're planning to fire me next week. I've started a new company. It has no clients and no revenue, but it has a plan. If you stay, you'll be cleaning up a mess you didn't create. If you come with me, you'll work harder than ever, but you will own a piece of what we build. The door is open. No pressure. They didn't even hesitate. At exactly 11 a.m., I sent 4 emails. The first was my resignation to the board and my parents, effective immediately. The second was to my lawyer, telling him to notify the landlord that I was no longer an executive, triggering the break clause in the lease. The third was to our Asian shipping vendor, informing them I was no longer their point of contact. I knew this would instantly triple their rates for my old company. The fourth was to my top 5 clients. It wasn't a sales pitch. It was a simple letter informing them that I had resigned, and that per their contracts, they had the right to review their service agreements. I attached a seamless migration plan showing them how my new firm, with their exact same team, could take over their account immediately. The fallout was instant. My phone started vibrating off the desk. First my father, screaming, voicemail. Then my mother, crying, voicemail. My sister sent a frantic text. What are you doing? This is reckless. I replied with 2 words. It's careful. By noon, the shipping vendor had called Sarah about the new pricing. By 1 p.m., the landlord's agent had called about needing a new guarantor for the lease, or a massive deposit money I knew they didn't have. By 3 p.m., our largest client had signed with my new company. The rest followed within 2 days. They weren't being disloyal. They were protecting their own businesses. I hadn't stolen them. I just offered them a lifeboat. By the end of the day, my family still owned a company. It had a name, a logo, and a huge downtown office it couldn't afford. It had a terrified, leaderless team. They had all the furniture, I had everything else. We launched the new firm quietly. No press releases, no victory laps. We just focused on doing what we do best, delivering for our clients. We worked out of a small co-working space, but the energy was electric. We were a team of owners, not employees. In our first quarter, with a fraction of the overhead, we beat our old company's best quarter ever. We were thriving. I heard things about the old company. Sarah's grand strategy collapsed. The big deals never came through. And without the old clients, they were bleeding cash. They had to break the lease and move to a cheap office in the suburbs. Layoffs followed. It was a slow, public decline. About 6 months later, my father called. The anger was gone, replaced by this hollowed-out exhaustion. Family shouldn't do this to family, he said. You're right, I said. They shouldn't. Sarah sent one last text. It just said, you planned this all along. She was wrong. I didn't plan for revenge. I planned for continuity. I built a business on trust and relationships. Their betrayal just decided the mailing address. People ask if I feel guilty. I don't tutu. I feel accurate. The best revenge wasn't destroying what they had. It was building something better that they could never touch. I didn't take anything from them. I just took back the legacy I had actually built. They were so obsessed with owning the crown, they never bothered to check if the kingdom was still there. It had just moved. It's a wild thing to be betrayed by the people who are supposed to have your back. If you've ever felt taken for granted, or had to choose between what you've built and what someone else expects of you, I genuinely love to hear your story in the comment. What would you have done in my shoes? And if you believe that the best success is the kind you build yourself on your own terms, hit that like button and subscribe for more. Thanks for listening.